Bodie. Bodie doesn't just sit, it waits. Even at noon, the town has a way of leaning its buildings toward you like it wants to overhear your reasons. On June 5, 1999, the sky was the kind of hard blue that makes wood look thirsty, and the wind turned the road dust into lace. I came for textures warped clapboards, window glass that keeps the century it prefers, the kind of rust that records time better than diaries. I had a 35mm for the honest work and a 2-megapixel point-and-shoot for the impulse. At 2:26 p.m., the dust lifted and stayed. It rose from the street in a soft sheet and then hung there, the way a curtain pauses when a hand lets go but the room forgets to have gravity. Between the empty storefronts, light seemed to thicken instead of brighten. Then a white rectangular door with no frame opened in midair, about 6 feet above the boards. No hinges, no sound. Just a clean, bright wrongness that made the rest of the day look like it had been drawn with a dull pencil. Two tourists early 50s. Neat. The kind of couple that makes itineraries out loud were closest. The man had a camera strap looped around his fingers, not over his neck. The woman said, "What is that?" And the dust didn't move, and the metal doorbells that hang on certain porches didn't bother to ring. The wind so talkative, always selling itself, stopped like it had been shushed by something that outranked weather. My watch wrote 2:26. The second ticked. It wrote 2:26 again. The park intercom on the nearest pole crackled, coughed, and went to carrier. Then the speaker learned a very quiet trick. It breathed. In 2 counts, out 3 knots static. Not a failing transformer breath. Measured. I looked for a ranger and saw none. I took a step toward the street, and the rectangle gave a tiny tilt, as if the air itself had cocked an ear. "Don't follow the light," the intercom whispered, in a voice that sounded intimate and wrong, because it sounded like mine, arriving half a beat late. The man's camera strap slipped off his fingers, and fell only it didn't. It vanished at half height as if the space between his hand and the plank had learned a new rule. No thud, no bounce, gone. His wife took 1 step onto the porch planks. The footprint appeared in the dust on the wood, and then another, and then nothing. Mid-plank, the prints ended as cleanly as a sentence, with no period. My phone, a childish optimism in 1999, a little screen with too much pride, told me it was ready. I lifted the point-and-shoot instead. The screen was bigger, louder about its certainty. I framed the street, the storefront, the floating door. The camera clicked. The review showed a washed white panel where the rectangle had been, and the time stamp in the corner rolled 14 hours 26 minutes and 7 seconds. 14 hours 26 minutes and 8 seconds. 14 hours 26 minutes and 8 seconds. 14 hours 26 minutes and 9 seconds. The door tilted again, not toward the couple, toward me. I'm 33. I cure my anxieties with lists. Bodie was on a page with grain, paint, nails, ghost glass. I do not chase legends, I chase angles. On the drive-in I had laughed at a pamphlet about the Bodie curse. The kind they hand out so people won't pocket artifacts and take someone else's story home. Superstition is how we pay for the crimes we don't intend to stop committing. There had been twitches all morning, but Bodie is generous with those. A door placard shivered when the air was still. Dad, with a MiniDV camcorder, asked me to take a family shot. When he rolled back the tape to show his kids, the counter froze at 0:08, advanced, then froze at 0:08 again. The visitor center radio made 2 notes down up before correcting itself. The ranger laughed it off as battery rebound. At noon, I shot the main street with my little digital. The frame looked normal. Only later, after the door did, I scroll back and see a faint rectangular halo hanging above the street like a watermark the day had printed without asking. 2. The couple and I stood in the etiquette of people who do not know if they have just been given a miracle or a test. The woman said, "Is this some installation?" The man said, "Don't," and then took a half step he couldn't explain. The rectangle inclined there is no other word toward him, a precise degree that read like listening. "Don't follow the light," the intercom said again, using my voice like a borrowed coat. I aimed the 35mm and took a shot, because film tells the truth when electronics have stage fright. The shutter answered with its faithful little guillotine, my heart. Tried to design a script for what would happen in a dark room hours from now. My hands kept shooting as if they were paid by the sound. A man to my left, mid-20s, checkerboard shirt, the proud owner of a new MiniDV, his cam and tried to frame the white door. His flip-out screen showed the boardwalk, the storefront, the brass bell that wouldn't commit to swinging. When he inched the frame up into the rectangle's territory, his screen turned black. He panned down image, up black, down image, up black. His tape counter smiled and wrote 008 twice for the same second. "Doe, go up there," I said, and realized I meant don't let your eyes go up. The woman reached for the camera that had left her husband's hand. Nothing met her fingers. She looked at the plank as if wood might confess. The rectangle's brightness didn't hurt to look at. It refused to enter you. It wasn't glare. It was a decision. The wind did not come back. The dust sheet still hung between us like stage gauze someone forgot to fly. "Don't follow the light," the speaker whispered, my voice learning, timing, appreciating syllables. "Some places teach you to stop being clever, Bodie." Bodie did it by making the air into a museum case and the light into a curator. I inched along the storefront, keeping the rectangle to my left, unwilling to walk under it. The white did a courtesy tilt toward my movement, not like an animal noticing you, more like a tuner cocking an ear at a note you might be able to hold. The couple tried common sense. "Ranger, hello." The intercom took the word hello out of the woman's mouth half a beat later in my voice and put it back into the air like proof. As we watched, a pamphlet tucked under a tiny porch, weight lifted, floated, and paused midair for 1 second, dead still, before committing to fall. The rectangle tilted a hair. My phone screen lit with a call from unknown. I swiped. No sound. The line stayed open for 7 seconds and dropped. The speaker on the pole took a soft breath that felt like it had manners. The man raised his hand toward the light, not all the way, just a test. The shadow on the plank did a small wrong thing. It missed where the hand should have gotten wider. His wrist cast a rectangle within a rectangle and then believed in itself again. He swore under his breath in a polite accent. The intercom tried a sentence with an apology shape and command grammar. "Please do not follow the light." My voice, a new rhythm. I decided to think of nothing because I remember how the mind feeds machines. I lasted 3 seconds and then thought of my brother because fear is lazy and goes for the person with the most syllables you're willing to spend. The speaker said his name. It said it right. It put more space between the letters than I ever do. "Don't think names," I said. Not to the couple, but to the part of the day that had a plan. "Don't think names," the speaker repeated, half a beat late. The man took a step I knew he'd take. The woman grabbed his sleeve. The fabric barely wrinkled. Footprints appeared in the dust across 2 planks and then ended mid-third. No splinter broken. No boards complaining. The rectangle tilted and then impossible to write did not move but was nearer. I brought the point and shoot up again because I'm a coward who believes in records. The viewfinder showed nothing of the door and too much of the world. I clicked anyway. The time stomp added 14 hours, 26 minutes and 8 seconds a second time, proud of its collection. A ranger appeared at the far end of Maine, the kind of walk that tries to be casual over a sprinting heart. He put a hand to his shoulder mic. His scanner answered the way the pole speaker had. Breath, 2 in, 3 out, 7 seconds. And then a single metal tap, like a latched gate deciding to learn manners. The ranger stopped and chose to be a man without technology for a minute. "Everybody back," he said, voice pitched to travel. "Peers, don't approach there." He ran out of nouns. "Door," the intercom offered, in my voice, generous as a librarian. He looked at the speaker, then at me, then at the white. He stepped onto the boardwalk and the bells on the general store didn't move. He got to the couple and put 2 fingers on the man's elbow, like you touch a bird with a broken idea of sky. "Sir," he said. "Ma'am, is it safe?" the woman asked. "No," he said, honest, brave. "It is not safe. It is not safe," the intercom repeated, as if pleased to help. The ranger raised his other hand toward the speaker pole and pressed the call. It stayed quiet. He exhaled and the speaker returned the exhale like a demonstration. He didn't swear. You could see him wanting to uphold dignity in front of a day that didn't. He motioned us back. The rectangle tilted to follow the motion, polite as a host who refuses to be human about it. The dust sheet had not fallen. It held. Sparkling grains stalled mid-argument. A boy in a Jurassic Park tee, his parents already exhausted by caution, darted forward 2 steps and looked up into the white. P made a sound like he had seen a whale from a cliff. The ranger caught him by the backpack strap and delivered him to daylight. The rectangle tilted toward the boy's path and then tilted back when the path was cancelled. The speaker breathed. The timestamp on my digital decided to be brave and wrote 1427 like a judge signing a form. The wind did not come back. We stood and counted breaths that did not belong to us. The ranger tried radio again. The scanner opened a line. I could hear it from where I stood and then hung up after its ritual 7 seconds. He lifted an arm to shade his eyes and accidentally framed the rectangle with elbow and palm. It looked smaller and then not. It did not care. We had invented perspective. The woman reached out a hand one more time like she was checking oven heat. The shadow of her fingers landed on the plank in a way that made math uncomfortable. She held her hand there, not moving. The rectangle gave the smallest tilt of the afternoon, listening, as if her palm had spoken. "Don't follow the light," the speaker said, like a bedtime story for people who had never loved sleep. The door narrowed, not shut, narrowed as if the white were being drawn back through a slot that existed where air runs out of rights. The brightness didn't dim, it withdrew. The rectangle became a strip, then a line, then nothing that the camera could have been proud of, then nothing at all. The dust fell in a single decision, an entire sheet choosing down at once. The bells did not ring. The wind waited another minute before it remembered us. The ranger stood with his hand on his mic like a man at a graveside holding a hat. "Okay," he said, "steady now that nouns were returning. Everyone step back to the boardwalk, please." We were already there. The couple looked at the plank with the ended prints and no camera. The man turned his hands over like he was confirming they were still hands. The woman said, "I'm right here," softly, to no one and to him. The boy cried in shallow hiccups. His father picked him up and learned a new religion of holding tight without hurting. The ranger walked the length of the planks, eyes on the grain, saw what we had seen, and chose not to say it out loud. He reached the place where the prints end and crouched. He touched the board with 2 fingers like the wood had ears. He stood. He drew a small circle in the dust around nothing and didn't know why. They taped off the block and asked for statements without asking for my name or the door. The scanner in the ranger truck made a recording. He played it for me later, when we were the only ones left. 27 seconds of measured breathing, and a single metal tap that sounded exactly like the gate latch on the hotel stairs. DRDO. Kept the breath like a jar keeps lightning bugs, long after it should have grown dark. I drove down the hill, an hour after the rectangle forgot us, parked at a turnout, and breathed like a thief. When I wound the 35mm back that night in my kitchen, the negatives from that half hour came up clean and wrong. Where the rectangle should be, there was a white burn without bleed or halo, like the emulsion had elected not to be emulsion right there. 2 frames showed the woman's footprints, 2 planks. Then none, and my stomach did the kind of flip you blame on hunger to keep your hands useful. My digital kept its timestamps as if facts could rescue us. 14 hours, 26 minutes and 8 seconds twice. 1427 later than felt possible. The file that shows the rectangle shows nothing a city will admit into evidence. It shows a field of white with a crisp edge, and your brain says glare, and your bones say no. For a week, at 2:26 p.m., my phone lit with unknown for 7 seconds, without ringing, and then posted a missed call from no one. For a month, the door chimes on a few shops in my neighborhood gave 2 notes down up before up down. For a year, every time someone whispered a name in a museum, my ribs learned how to become fence. I sent copies of the negatives to the couple, not their names, but the ranger found them because a town that listens to wind also listens to grief. In the envelope, I put a sticky note with the shape of the sentence the speaker had used to try to teach us how to survive. Don't follow the light. I didn't include my return address. Some stories don't want circles, they want edges. I go back to Bodie now and then because fear docent get to own the good wood, too. When the wind behaves, you can hear a bottle roll in a room no one has owned since a horse didn't come home. I shoot textures. I shoot glass that learned to love dust. I keep my camera strap around my neck because gravity isn't the only contract we have with the world, and habits can be vows. If this shape has touched your day, dust that paused mid-air, a white rectangle opening where air refuses to be, corridor, an intercom that breathes and borrows your voice, footprints that end mid-strap that vanishes between hand and ground, a clock that writes 2:26 twice. Leave me one word so I know my street isn't the only street that held its breath. White door, no coordinates, no building names, no invitations for the wrong kind of pilgrim, just white door. I read them at 2:26 with my hands empty and my camera straps doing their small, loyal job. At night, I practice not thinking names. The city is generous. It gives me 1,000 other nouns. When the door chime plays down up by mistake, I breathe and wait for it to apologize. And if it doesn't, I still say thank you out of habit, because gratitude is the only superstition I have left that doesn't charge me rent. Don't follow the light. I hear it in my voice and in the speaker and in the kind of silence that comes after wind. I have not followed. I have counted. I have written. I have handed the sentence to you like a strap I am not letting go of. The wind is back. Dust knows what to do again. Bodie waits, as politely as it ever has, for someone to forget how to be patient. I am trying to remember.